Hey guys, welcome back to the Tukes and Tires YouTube channel. As always, I'm Zach, and this week we're making up functioning side windows and even installing some vent windows in the C1 Chevelle.
Hey, is that Timmy's?
Yeah, because we're in Canada.
Alright guys, so just like the last video, I have no idea what we're trying to accomplish in today's video, but we're going to figure it out. I still know that there's a bunch of small things we're going to be doing. You have a better idea than I do. So I think, we got to finish off these doors. There's still some sheet metal work that needs to be done on them, like obviously patching in these holes and stuff and actually fastening the sheet for good to the structure we made. But before we do that, we actually need to figure out the vent windows. So in the last video at the end, you would have saw I talked about these vent windows. Apparently, these are super rare. Just because the C1 Chevelle is actually 68, and 68 is a 1 year only where it had vent windows, so finding some are like impossible. These came from a Beaumont, which is a Pontiac, so exactly the same car, just, it's just a different name. So we're going to actually be hacking these things up. I feel awfully terrible because somebody else is probably looking for these things, but I need air in this car, so we don't cook ourselves to death. So basically what we're going to be doing here, Lacey's obviously already helping, but what we need to do is, obviously, since we got the cage in here, and that runs kind of right where the door, would be the opening, and we won't be able to fit this track down in there actually where the door would actually be, so we're gonna have to hack this off and make some kind of new bracket to support this whole thing. So I think what we're gonna do is I'm gonna actually hack that off, see where we got to make mounts to actually mount this up, and then we'll go from there. Lacey, you gonna help out? You're probably just gonna start sleeping like always. Alright guys, so got that vent window all hacked off, and I actually got a little bit ahead of myself because it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be to actually mount this thing in there, so we can get the door popped open. You can see kind of what we got going on in here. Basically, I made up mounts that went into the factory spot here for the vent window, and then I just made up like an angle iron little brace here with a bolt here to actually stiffen up this side. And then on the other side, I had some tube left over with a round on it, so we just bent that, welded it here, going here, so it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of hitting it in all the spots where it would need to be, so it's not wobbly. I just have it all kind of tacked for now, so I do need to fully weld this out. So you can see though that this vent window is like nice and stiff, so then we actually slam the door, it's going to be, nice and sturdy in there. We should be able to get a weather strip on here, so hopefully we don't get a whole bunch of wind noise. We were already just kind of eyeballing up here with a piece of plexiglass or whatever you want to call this stuff. But the vent window, it actually does clear the pipe in there, so we should be able to have air. I still need to get the locks for this because we're going to do like a, what do you want to call it, older style, where it's going to have like a lock on the glass instead of the crank handle it would have. So I need to add a spring to that, but that will come later on. I think what we're going to do now is I'm going to get this more fully welded out, and then maybe we might try to fix up the skin more on the door, because then I can actually get the skin fastened on for good, and then we can actually move on to actually figuring out the rest of the windows on this side, and then we'll move on to the other side. So we might come back to once I have a better game plan. I don't know. I'm just winging it at this point. I have no idea what we're doing. But the vent window's in there, and that is super cool. So we'll come back to once I know what we're doing. Alright guys, so we got the door skin off now, so I can come in here and actually fully weld out all the brackets and little stuff we made. So you can see the curved one here that's supporting that. I can weld it off from the back side, so that'll be all solid. But what we're actually working on right now is that a lot of you guys have been asking how we're actually going to patch the holes in the door. So I had some steel left over from the inside from when we were actually chopping out all the old steel from inside the car. So I've just been making patch panels out of that. That we're going to actually weld onto the skin. So we're going to try it out on this first door on this side first, I guess, and see how it goes. I'm just going to try to tack it from the back. Nothing too crazy because I don't want to distort the paint, but we might end up actually splashing some blue paint on here just to make it look a little bit more like the door, but I don't want to hide that the holes used to be there. So we're going to come back to actually maybe kind of welding this stuff on there, and then we'll see how it fits back onto the car. But yeah, I think it's going to turn out pretty sweet. So those patches didn't turn out too bad. On the other side, I actually just ground them just a little bit, so they're looking pretty good. I actually really like this like really rusty one here. You can't even tell that it's there. I'm hoping eventually basically all these spots are just going to rust out and it's going to look like nothing ever happened. And we also got this all welded up over here, just tacked it in a few spots. Actually burnt my foot pretty good with a heater that fell through, but you know, it is what it is. But now what we're going to do is we're going to get the skin back onto the door, see how it fits, and then we can actually just make up this one last little patch panel over here. And then this side is going to be pretty well done other than some of the other window stuff that we're going to do. So we'll get that on and then we'll move on to that. So here we go. Alright guys, so we got the door skin back on and it's looking pretty well perfect. Like, if you wouldn't known that those patches weren't there, they would just look like they've been there its whole life. We got the back one made up, so that's looking pretty sweet. So this is pretty well sealed off. We still have to make a little support in the bottom there, but we're going to do that later because I don't know if the door skin is just going to have to come off again. What I think we're going to move on to is actually making up the rest of the windows. So what we need to do is start with the back one so that we know where it's going to be situated and like how far in it's going to be. So me and Dad made up this template over here out of just some ram board. So we marked it onto this, whatever this stuff is called. I don't know. It's not acrylic. It's not Lexan. It's something else. So I'm going to get the jigsaw. We're going to cut this out, and then we're going to see how this piece actually fits in there. Who knows? We might have to try to curve it, but yeah, we're going to figure it out. So we'll cut that out, and then we'll come back to seeing how it's fitting. we got that piece fitting in there really nice. You know, I couldn't be happier on how it kind of turned out. We just made sure that I have like a 1/2 inch lip hanging down so I can actually fasten it to the skin here. In the top, I think it's just going to get caulked or something like that with some kind of adhesive just to hold it in there. It is going to be fastened over here because we're going to be doing some kind of channel here for the other window to butt against. So we're actually going to move on to that because I need to figure out where that's going to be to fasten this on. And then we're going to actually add the channel down here that the window is going to slide into. So we kind of need to do all these things all at once because they're all going to work together. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to cut up this 1-inch square tube I bought. Basically, this was like the thinnest wall stuff I could buy with already a nice 90 on it. So we're going to split it right in half so we get 2 L's for both sides. And then we'll see about fitting that up top here and maybe getting it welded in. And then, yeah, we can start moving on to some other things and maybe making this window. So we'll cut that, and then once I come back and I have a better game plan, we'll do that. Lacey, you just woke up. Alright guys, so we got that square tube cut in half, and this is what it looked like at first. And this is the piece that we actually made up. I got it painted black just because I won't be able to get in there from the backside afterwards to actually paint that. So whatever burns off, burns off. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to get this tack welded up in here, kind of get it to the front pillar, and then what we can do is actually fit the back window in to this. So hopefully this is going to give me enough room for like a rubber for once the window is actually in there. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually get that thing welded in, and then we'll see how it's all working, and then we'll move on to the bottom track. So that's pretty wicked. Alright guys, so we got that top piece in there and it's fitting really awesome. Got it all just kind of spot welded along here. It's welded really nicely at the front, so it's nice and sturdy in there. And you can see that we took our protective off this back thing in there. I got it all riveted at the bottom. We got this aluminum strip in here, kind of going to be where our weather strip's going to hit. And that's just made out of like a 1 inch of aluminum. It's like 1/8 thick. So that's looking pretty sweet. And I also got the bottom track in here. I've just been going like crazy on this thing. So that's made out of this 3/8 channel. It's aluminum. And then we have this 1 inch by 1 inch L channel. So I have that. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's just in here. It's going to be riveted to the door. And then it's riveted down in the bottom. So all we have to do now is just make up the template for the side window, which I'm going to make out of that stuff right there. And then we can actually cut that out and see if it's all going to work all together. So basically what's going to happen is you'll open the door, slide the piece in like this, and then close the door. And then if you want the glass out, same deal. You just open the door, slide it out, stick it behind the seat. So we'll get that cut, and then we'll see how it's going to fit. So I don't know how you guys can see that on the video here, but there is a reflection, so we do have a piece in there. It actually fit in really well. I didn't film cutting that just because it was pretty much the same as cutting the back one. Just again, took some time, you know, just cutting some things and trying to fit it in there. But I'll pop the door so you guys can see that it works. So door opens with it in there. You can see the channel that we got in here that it's sitting in. I'm probably yet going to put some kind of felt onto this glass just so that if it does rattle, that it's going to try to take that up. But you can take the door, you can slam it, it stays shut, so that is super cool. Vent window open, so you can have the vent window open with the side piece of plexiglass or whatever you want to call it in there, so that's super cool. I'm going to do one of those like twist style locks up here, like what's going to be here. So from the inside, you'll actually be able to lock this so that this isn't going to go like that down the road. So I think that should be all right, but once there's weather strip on this whole thing, I think it should be okay. But that's the passenger side pretty well done. I still have the steel piece to put in the bottom of this door, so I'm going to do that quick, and then we'll probably just come back and the other side will be done because, you know, you see me do this whole side, and then we'll figure out what we're moving on to next. But man, look at this thing. When you look at it like this, that is so cool. You got the side glass in there, the glare. Oh man, wicked. And with movie magic, the driver's side is exactly like the passenger side just looked. So you can see we got both of our windows in there. We got the vent windows in there, and they operate just like the other side, so that's super cool. But I figured I'd walk you guys kind of through on how this window works, how you take it apart. I tried to make this look as close as possible to what a hardtop would look like, and how the glass functions, that it's not in any kind of track or anything, and as easy as possible. Because obviously, you know, if you're going to be doing this a lot, in quotations, a lot, you don't want to make it too difficult to actually take apart. So for the vent windows and for these windows, I actually bought 2 sets of locks. So this will be on the inside, so you can actually just like slide this bar over. So this part of the glass isn't going to be flopping around, and that you can lock the vent windows. So hopefully those should work out all right. And we still have weather strip to go all on this and whatever. But you can see, hopefully the window's in there. We can pop the door. It opens. There's nothing holding this plexiglass in other than the front and the side. So it looks as close to what a hardtop would look like with just a piece of glass in there. It works relatively easy. You can slam it. All holds in there. It works pretty good actually. But to take it out, you just open the door, you get this out. This comes out just like that. You can shut the door, and then obviously you have no windows. You can drive just like a regular car with the window open. Throw these behind the seat. So I'm gonna obviously get some bags for these or whatever just to protect them so they don't get too scratched up. And then when it starts to rain, in quotations, or it's too cold or whatever, you can just like pull over. Obviously I've done this a bunch of times, so I figured out the best way to put it in there. You can get this. We hook the back of the track, hook the front of the track at the bottom. Stick my fingers where the vent window would be. Give this a little bit of a curve, slide down, push it forward. And it's just that easy. I think it's pretty easy. Obviously, I thought of a whole bunch of different ways of trying to make this work, and this was the best way I could come up with making it have side glass and be able to be removable. Obviously, where I am, and we're trying to make this street legal, that you have to have functioning windows, and technically they function. So that's super cool. You're able to lock it. You can't obviously get in. That's probably the main goal for insurance purposes. So that's all I was going for. So that's super cool. So we'll bring you in so you guys can see a closer look at this on how it all kind of goes together on the inside. I still have some fine finishing to do, but the main parts are all finished. And yeah, I think that's, that's super cool. I think that's where we're going to end it off, basically. So I figured I'd bring you guys in here so you can see the patches that we did on this door, and I think they even turned out better than the other side. So once those spots where the welds came through kind of rust, I think it's going to look really good. In the future, I think we're going to actually try to make up a block-off plate that looks just like the other side. So if you guys notice that, it's kind of like all weathered aluminum. So I do have some stuff like that will actually make it match, and then we'll maybe do one for the keyhole and for where this mirror used to be. So I think that's going to look super cool. Yeah, this turned out really awesome. It operates pretty well. On the inside here, off camera, we did make up this bottom stiffener thing, so that really stiffened up the bottom of the door. And if you actually take the door off, it gives it something nice to sit on. And in the future, it's going to give me a good spot to actually put a seal to. So that's a later Zach's issue to worry about seals and all that kind of thing. But I would say 95% of the door is done, and this is going to be good enough for now. So we'll call that one good. But I think that's where we're going to end off this video. So thank you guys so much if you made it to this point. Definitely comment down below if you think this was a cool idea. And yeah, hopefully this helps out somebody if they're trying to do this on their stock car and you need windows and stuff like that. I know it depends on where you live. You might not need windows in your car. I think technically I only needed the glass front windshield, but this way, if we get stuck in weather, I don't really have to worry about getting wet. So yeah, that's super cool. Also, for you guys that actually made it to this point in the video, I figured we'd let you in on a little bit of a secret on why I've been trying to... Videos have been taking a little longer to come out, and they've been coming out the way they have been. We're actually trying to make it onto Hot Rod Power Tour with the Chevelle. So I really enjoyed that last year with the 54, and I kind of want to do it again, but I don't want to do it again in the truck. So hopefully we can get this done in time. I don't want to promise anything yet, but that's the goal. So we have a lot more work to do till then, but it's getting there. So next video, we're actually going to be probably tackling the quick change rear end in this thing, so you guys will see that soon. And after that, who knows what we'll come up with. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for subscribing. And as always, don't forget to salute the beaver. We'll catch you next time.